My name is Wayne Renshaw, and I am an architect with a small office here in the city of San Jose.
I'm Cheryl Renshaw, and I work as a landscape designer in my real job. And since the year 2000, when we started, we have been street painting in Santa Barbara, Palo Alto, Danville, San Rafael, and recently we have added cities in Florida and New York. We know several people who we know through the festivals that spend their time full-time as muralists, or we've got one friend who's a portrait painter and just absolutely fantastic. But I would say most of the people we know, this is their hobby.
One of the biggest questions people say is, how much are they paying you to be here? Well, it's like they bought me lunch.
My students got really upset when the sprinklers came on that night after they did their beautiful chalk pieces, and they were like, Miss Loera, what, they turned on the sprinklers. Like, that's what it is, It was only meant to be there when you did it and when you were done.
The reason that we do this, even though it's very transient, is that I've ran across a quote a few years ago that says, everything is ephemeral, but sometimes the ephemeral is divine.
To put so much effort into something that's going to disappear in a day or two, I think a lot of people feel that's a challenge as well.
I think that for me that captures why I do chalk art, that we are making, everything we make is not going to last forever. And some things don't last very long at all, but you do it because the act of doing it is worth doing it, is worth it.
The true art of street painting isn't the final image on the ground. The true art of it is the process of doing it. Sitting there talking with your friends and meeting with the public, answering the questions, laughing, eating cookies, as we always bring cookies to the event. The process is the art, not the final product itself. Does the public understand what it is you're drawing? Well, if you're drawing a picture of the President of the United States, they may tell you a little bit about their politics and why they either love him or don't. But if you're drawing a picture of a puppy and a little girl, well, people like that too, and they'll tell you about their grandchild or their child or their puppy. So I think the public does understand it to the degree that they can relate to it, and sometimes they're just amazed at what they see and the chalk. And when people see something that they've never seen before, and especially when the art of doing it and the process of it is the real art, they're amazed. They're really amazed by, wow, how do you do that? When the answer is really just rub some chalk down and smear it around, they're amazed by the process and what goes on.
What we do is we plot out long strips of paper using a plotter, which is a large printer that has a line drawing of the image we're doing. We poke holes in the paper, lay those out on the street, and dust powdered chalk through the holes to transfer our image. We also build the images we work from using Photoshop and Illustrator and computer tools like that.
We try to put together an image that tells a story. And sometimes you can do that just by taking a photograph of something, but more often than not, there's some mixture of it. The other weekend we went out and took a picture of our nieces. The theme of it is old movies, and so we're doing a melodrama scene. So we have a image of our two nieces, one of which is dressed as
the heroine.
Yes, and the other one is dressed as
the villain,
Snidely Whiplash. But we needed railroad tracks, and we need mountains, and we need Canadians, and not all of that comes in one photograph. So it's taking that image apart. The actual painting of three-dimensional art is really no different. The techniques are the same. You're still rubbing chalk into the same pavement. The images get long and distorted, and you have to understand that. But that's just painting technique that most artists do indeed have. The difficulty with three-dimensional work is understanding the distortion, figuring out the distortions and how to make them so that they work.
Wayne kept saying, no, 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 that's far too stretched out. It couldn't possibly be that far.
Yes, when you first lay out the image, it gets really distorted. You know, as you move back, a child's head might be 6 feet. The head of the child might be larger than the rest of the child put together. And when you lay this out and you print it out, the first thing you say is, oh, that's weird. That's really weird. That must be wrong. And the reality is it's not. So I finally given up on saying, oh, that's wrong every time Cheryl prints it out.
But he's still, every time once we've gotten the pattern down on the pavement, he has to go back and take a picture and look and go, it is working.
It is working. Yeah, it does work. It does work.
It is possible for somebody to do this as a living, but it is rare. We do know of a few friends who do these street paintings for a living. Generally, the way they do it is they have corporate paintings that, you know, corporations have them come for events where they do a painting. One friend of ours did a whole series for Cadillac where they were not only 3D paintings, they were augmented 3D, where if you held up an iPad, you could see this little Cadillac car drive up the windy road that she had painted.
I would rather create paintings for fun. I don't feel that added pressure, but of course I don't really speak for the whole art community because I'm an art teacher, so you know I have a job in the art field. I'm not having to make a living working on commission.
When you're sponsored, sometimes they'll say, come to us and here's the image that we want. The people who do this for a living professionally, well, they don't get to paint pictures of puppies and horses and things that are imaginative to them. They get to do an image of Pepsi with the
Cadillac
That they are there to do an advertising. They are there to make magic for their sponsors. Cheryl and I, every so often someone says, well, why don't you consider doing this for a living? And it's like, well, because we really enjoy it and we would rather continue enjoying it rather than having it become work.
My mom is a former school teacher, and growing up we always had this bumper sticker. Never actually made it on the car, but we had this bumper sticker that said arts are basic.
I think people who are in the arts and legislators and everything else, we have to keep pushing the reasons why art is important.
If you're an engineer, it's very important that you learn not just the fundamentals of structures and dynamics and statics. You need to learn something about art. How is it that you make things not just beautiful, but that people can relate to them? If you have a car, what is a car? It's 4 wheels and a steering wheel.
Engine and a few other things.
And a few other things. But if you can make that vehicle so that people enjoy looking at it, people are comfortable in it, people feel at home, the art of that, not only does it sell product, but it makes you feel good to be with it. And when you understand how artists feel and engineers feel, it gives you a different approach on things.
I do believe federal money should be used to fund art. Somebody who would say no, I'd say go take an art class.
And I think the internet has done a lot to promote the concept of chalk festivals and just the street painting in general, because people send pictures of, have you seen what the chalk guy has done, and so forth, to each other.
We can share our events, we can share our artists, we can share their artwork, we can promote different artists, we can promote our events, and you get viewers that you wouldn't normally get in your community, in your circle of friends. You you get viewers from all over the world, so you draw in obviously a much bigger audience than you would without social media.
My favorite question was when the 2-year-old came and he looked up at me and he said, "How do you do that? And how do you answer that question to a 2-year-old?" So I said, "Well, you take the piece of chalk and you go like this on the ground. And then you take your hand and you go like this." And then he looked back up at me and goes, "Oh," as if it was nothing. And then reaches for some chalk to get
It's
started.
like, whoa, 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 whoa. At the moment, one of the big fads in painting or in the art world is sort of the street art in terms of graffiti art, like Banksy and artists like that. And street painting doesn't generally get as much credit, I think, even as that.
That sort of street art tends to move towards the political and they're trying to make a statement. Whereas if you go to the chalk art festivals, you may see 50 third graders all drawing pictures of flowers and daisies
SpongeBob.
and SpongeBob and all of that. And people say, well, that's not serious. Then you go to the other end of the festival and you see some of the most amazing things that are drawn.
The festivals tend to be somewhat conservative because they are a family event and because, you know, you see everybody comes through and they're on the street.
What's there is there, but we do try to encourage them to keep it family friendly because it is a public venue, and I think sometimes public venues should be that way.
So I think the artists that are drawn to this type of medium do not tend to be the real avant-garde, out there kind of artists, which tends to be the type of artists that the art world pays attention to.
You know, but there's always those ones. Wayne and Cheryl told me a story about one artist that they might have told you the same story. You know, he always wanted to draw something, penises, sorry. But I mean, that's, you can cut it, can't you? Sorry. But he would do it just to, say, I can make art how I want. And I can, you know, to me this is not offensive.
And that's one of the things I think a lot of artists are attracted to with street painting is the fact that we do get a chance to interact with the people who are viewing the art. A lot of art is done, you know, in a solitary studio, you know, the artist painting away with no feedback until they get everything done. And I think artists tend to feel kind of lonely and, you know, like the fact that they get that interaction. But it does come with a cost that, you know, if you're doing something somewhat controversial, you may end up not being very happy with that interaction.